So my hope with this is that I can walk you through some of the basics of using Respondus with the different types of questions that we use in our quizzes and our lab sheets. So what I've done is just created a basic document that includes, I think, all of the things we would use to some extent. We've got a header with some instructions, a couple of multiple choice questions, one with a picture involved, an essay style response question, a one fill in the blank and a multiple fill in the blank question, matching questions, and then of course multiple response questions. All of these different types of questions we've used in some form or another on our lab sheets. Now I will say that most of our work is in multiple choice, and that will probably be the easiest to learn how to do. So I'm going to take this Word document and we're going to load it into Respondus. So here is the Respondus application, and it's cutting off a little bit on the screen. Sorry about that. But we're going to start with importing questions, and you can see that I've got a couple different options between plain text, rich text, and of course most of the stuff we do is with Microsoft. And then I'm going to go and find my test document and create a name for it. So we're going to call it testing 1, and we're going to preview, see how it does. So I didn't really do any formatting with that document yet, and it's coming up with some errors. It says there's question 3 had no answers. Questions 1, 4, 5, and 6 had no correct answer selected. And then of course we left out question 3, so there's quite a few errors that it made. But what you will notice in this screen here is that it eliminated the questions that it didn't like altogether. So if I were to continue and finish this, my instructions would be gone, questions 3 would be gone, and then these other questions are not formatted properly, so I would still have to go back in and edit them inside Canvas when I'm done. Now at this point, if I go back to the Word document before I hit the finish button, if I go back to the Word document, I can make changes. Let me show you real quick. I'll go back to the Word document, and let's just say I make this a question now, and everything else follows, and I go ahead and save that. When I come back to the preview button, it's already loading the same document, and now all of a sudden I have quite a bit of difference. You'll notice that there's 6 questions that had no answers, and they were removed as invalid. So that didn't work too well. I got some editing to do, but I want to go back to that Word document real quick and go back to the way it was. So if I just hit finish at this point, I would only end up with these 3 questions. You can see I've got a list of here that only 3 are showing up. The first multiple choice, the picture multiple choice, and select all are the only ones that are coming up as valid. And so I could just hit finish at this point, and I'm going to do that just so you can see what it looks like. And now I have a file saved in my Respondus that's named testing 1, and I'm going to be able to see all of the questions that I've made. Okay, and now here I clicked on, just so you can see, I clicked on this expanded view, and this is a screen that I go to when I have a lot of questions and I want to change the point value. I haven't found a good way to change all of the questions at once, but from here I can click and say, okay, these are all going to be worth 5 points, and just go really, really quickly and get those saved. I also wanted to show you, this is a good spot where you can change. Let's say I wanted one of the questions to be a different type of question. I could change that here as well. But before I mess with any of that stuff, I'll play around with that for you in a minute. Here is where I would finish. So I can come into the Preview and Publish tab. I can preview my file. And this is a very important step, especially when you've got pictures, because if you look here, my question 1 has the picture that I was meant to use for question 2. We know that's not correct, right? And question 2 says the above photo that's not there. And of course, the underlines don't go away. You'll notice that the red font went away, but the underlines did not. So I did this on purpose so that you would see that a little bit of formatting up front is going to be very important. 1, make sure you get rid of the underlines, and 2, I'll show you how we can go back into that Word document and create the questions correctly. So I'm just going to start over. Come back here, we'll grab that Word document, that same one, test Respondus. Let's see, we're going to create a new document, right? We had what, testing 1 and preview. Oh, yeah, so I already created that file, so I can't do that. Now, I did this on purpose too, because as you're creating your new documents, it's going to be beneficial for you to have some sort of naming convention that will be unique enough that it won't duplicate, but descriptive enough that you're going to know what it is. So I'm just going to change this to testing 2. One thing I didn't mention earlier is this STEM. As we progress in doing some of these exams, a lot of our unit exams, so forth, will have a ton of Tech A, Tech B questions. And while that won't really present a problem in the finished product, it does give you errors because a lot of the questions start with the same wording. So using a STEM is going to help us prevent having duplicate question types. So I just, whatever you want to use there, just some sort of, let's just call it test. Now when I do that, every title, every test question is going to start with test, and then it's going to give us that number. All right, so now we're back to where we were, and we need to format the test. So let's come in here, and there are essentially 5 or 6 different types of questions that we will have on this. And even though this is, this first one is not a question, I'm going to act like it is, and I'm going to make it an essay question. So whenever I want to use a question as an essay, I just, right above the question number, type in this type E, type colon space E, very specifically, type colon space E, and that tells Respondus that I'm going to use an essay question. And then for every essay question, I want to answer, so I'm going to use this A, let's see here, I'm going to use the A as my answer. And since I am not going to have a true question, I'm just going to type in text only, and I'll show you what I do with these here in just a minute. Now, when I go back in, and let's see, let's continue numbering real quick so that they all show the same. I can go back to Respondus and preview this one again. I gotta save it first. That's why it didn't work. Let's save it. Go back to Respondus, preview. And now you see I have this instructions question up front. I still have a lot of other problems I gotta fix, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But now I have type E for question 1. That one is good. For question 2, it's a multiple choice question, so I don't need to do anything with this one. I'm going to create an answer sheet afterwards to take care of this one. And so we're going to skip that one for now. Question 3 is also going to be a multiple choice. I need to restart at A on the answers, but I need to bring the photo. So I'm going to cut and paste right there. And that is going to be the proper way to format a photo. So again, when I save this document and I go back to here, now it won't show a difference here. All it's going to show is that I have a photo. You can see I have a photo in that picture. All right, now moving on to the other ones. Question 4 is simply going to be an essay question, right? I want students to type in a box. Now, normally in our labs, we have a series of lines, that we would have put there, and you may have had either some red lettering afterwards, right? It's an NTC, blah blah blah. And here's what I like to do. On those, it's very easy for me. I'm just going to create this as a type E, right? So type :space E, and then just make the A. And if you want to clean it up, you can get rid of the lines. Right now I have a question 4, essay question, and the student's going to see discuss how the temp sensor works. What I'm going to see on the grading sheet is the answer key that I typed in here. So that does help a lot. Okay, so I think so far we've got 2 essay questions. Granted, the first question is not really a question, and I have 2 multiple choice questions that I do need to make sure I do a answer key for. Questions 5 and 6 are fill in the blank questions. So question 5 is a single fill in the blank. Question 6 is a multiple fill in the blank. So what I'm going to do is a type :space F, and that tells Respondus that it is a fill in the blank question. And again, you'll notice that I have it formatted kind of like what we would see in our lab sheets. So I need to get rid of that. So I'm going to cut that out. And just like the essay question, I'm going to type in my answer right there. So when it goes into Respondus, the student's only going to see this, but it will automatically grade for CKP. Now the challenge here is that multiple answers could be accepted, right? So the student may abbreviate it as CKP, but they may also spell out crankshaft position sensor. So as I continue to type A and B, these are going to be allowed options for the student to have, right? So if the student types crankshaft position sensor, it will be accepted as a full credit point. If they type in CKP, it will also be accepted. The biggest challenge I found with these fill in the blanks is coming up with all of the possibilities that a student might decide to type. I will tell you that capitalization is not a factor. So they could have everything capitalized or none of it capitalized, it won't matter. But the spelling is important, as well as spacing and even if you accidentally type a period after it and they don't, it'll mark it wrong. So you have to go back in and manually grade some of them to make sure they work. But if you if you do fill in the blank questions, you probably want to think about all of the potential answers that they could come up with. Okay, but again, the student's only going to see the sentence, and Respondus will accept any of these as the correct answer. Now, when I do a multiple form field, or not form field, fill in the blank, I'm still going to use a type F, right? So type :space F. But in this case, I am going to have an answer in sequential order separated by a comma. Okay, and the same thing goes though. If I wanted to, I have to consider all of the different possibilities. Now, in something like this, what I've been taken to doing is kind of describing exactly what I want them to do. So I want them to type in an acronym, and I want them to type in an acronym, and that way, you know, they should be able to select, or not select, but type in the correct acronym for the CKP and the CMP. Now, it's possible that you have, you know, let's say that the answer could be either way. I may want to do CMP, comma CKP. Now, in this case, that doesn't work, but I may want to do that so that the order can be reversed. And that way you have two potential answers that will work. Okay, so far we have had full multiple choice, essay questions, fill in the blank, multiple fill in the blank, and now this one is a matching terms. So I want them to select the appropriate term with its definition. Okay, so this one is going to be a type MT. So for matching, MT for matching. Now the way this one is going to work is I'm going to also have the A's and the B's and the C's, etc. Right? Now I'm just going to simply say that the coil equals the answer. So what the student is going to see is they're going to see a column with these four terms and then a drop-down arrow box with these four definitions in each of the drop-down boxes. And they can select which one they want. So I'll show you how it looks when we're done. And then so this one is all set. Now the last one is I wanted them to select all that apply. Now to do that one, there is type :space MR, and that stands for multiple response. Now this one has been a little bit challenging for me to figure out, and if you're familiar with Word, you know that there's some automatic spacing or automatic numbering and formatting that happens, and what I'm doing with this one is I am undoing that and creating just text. So here you see these are just text. They're not automatic number styles. To create which ones I want them to answer, I put an asterisk in front of the answer. Now, again, I want to point out that the font color does not transfer, but the underline does. So if I have anything that's bolded, italicized, or underlined, I want to make sure I get rid of that. So I've taken to simply, before I put it into Respondus, Control-All, Control-U twice, that gets rid of all the underline. Control-I twice, that gets rid of all the italic, and Control-B twice, that gets rid of all the bold. So all of that formatting now is gone. Okay? And so we have the main types of questions that we're going to be using: fill in the blank, essay, multiple choice, matching, and multiple response. So I wanted to say real quick that the asterisk trick I did with the multiple response will work with multiple choice as well. So what I need to do would get rid of all of the letters, right? And then see how it tries to automatically change it back to an A. I click on that lightning bolt and undo automatic numbering. Now I've got the ability to just put in text, right? And then I can put in the correct answer that I want them to select by putting the asterisk in front of it. So I also wanted to just clarify that with multiple choice questions, I do not have to have a type. So Respondus will assume if I don't have a type special that it's going to be a multiple choice. Now I could do the same thing with this one, or at the end of my document I can create an answer key. So what I would do here is to create a page break, and I'm going to have an answer key. It is very important that you type it as answers, plural, colon, and then you can type in the questions that you want to have answered. All right, so again, I want to do this as a text because I only need to answer. So I have an answer for question 1. I have an answer for question 2. I do not have an answer for 3, but I have answers for 4 through 8. So the only one I need to answer is 3. And so I'm going to do a 3 period space, and then I'm going to select the correct answer. So the correct answer on number 3 is a B. So I'm going to do it as a B. Now I'm going to save this file, come back into Respondus and preview and see if I have any errors. So now a lot of things happened there, right? So you can see I have my instructions. I have no warnings, which means that I should have 8 total questions and none skipped. So you can see that no questions were skipped and my instructions are there. At this point, I'm good to finish. So let's go ahead and finish it. Okay. Again, my expanded view, on the ones that I have text only, they're going to be 0 points. I'm going to change it later so that there's nothing applied to it. But again, going in and fixing how many points I want each question to be. And let's preview and see how it looks. Okay, so here's my instructions. It says text only. So right now this is still considered an essay question. So I'm going to modify this item. And when I modify it, you can see it's selected as essay question, but I want it to be text no question. All right, so now it's highlighted text no question. Save your changes. All right, now you can see that there's no even answers down here. So we're in good shape. All my instructions are there. All right, we'll move on to question 2. You can see that the questions there, the choices for the student to select are there, and the correct answer has been labeled. Question 3 has the photo in the right place. It has the answers for the students to select and the correct answer there. The next one is our essay question. Now this is why I spend the time to type the correct answer out here, because this is what the student is going to see, right? And they're going to have a place to come in and type their answer. When they submit it, I can compare their answer to what I was expecting them to type. And that is how I can very quickly grade these questions. Okay? Here is my fill in the blank, and you'll notice that all of the possibilities that I typed are optional correct answers. So the student can type any of these 4 and get credit. If they misspell something though, it will mark them wrong. And usually the students come and say, hey, why did I get this wrong? And I'll go in and correct it because they had the correct answer, they just misspelled it. Here is my multiple fill in the blank, and you'll notice again I have it will accept a CKP CMP, or it'll accept a CMP CKP. Now if I realize that, you know what, it really shouldn't affect it the other way, I can come back in, modify it, get rid of option B, because truly the CKP is responsible for timing, and with COP systems I do need to have a CMP to verify when top dead center is occurring. So we're going to save that, and you'll see it's gone, so that's been corrected. Here is my matching, so the student will get a choice between these, right? And then obviously they're randomized, so they have to go through and pick the one that we want them to do, and then each one of these is going to be worth 25 percent of the question. And then here's the final one, where they are going to select all that apply. So you can see how the good ones and the bad ones are identified. So if they select the wrong ones, you know, the system's gonna automatically calculate that for them. Now there is some formatting problems here that I haven't quite figured out quite why this happens. However, you can fix it up front, or you can fix it after you get it into Canvas. So I'm going to wait and do this one after we get into Canvas so we can show you, because there's some other things I want to show you on Canvas. All right. So at this point, I like the way everything looks. Everything looks good. So we're going to publish the file. And when you go to publish it, it's going to say, do you want to create a new quiz in your Canvas shell, or do you want to replace an existing Canvas shell? So if you have not created placeholders, so Roner had mentioned earlier that he put in placeholders for all of the quizzes, but if you didn't do that and you just wanted to create a new quiz, this would be the option you would do. And as you go into Canvas, you're going to find the pre-shell for T10 hybrid. And when if I hit next at this point, it will just create that new quiz titled Testing 2. Or I can say, nope, I want to replace an existing one because I've already got a placeholder. And so I'm still going to have to find the pre-shell T10 hybrid. And then it's going to say, well, which one do you want to replace? And I'm just going to replace quiz 1. We can always go back in and change it later. But I'm just going to load this one into Canvas. And it's there. I mean, it just magically went. So I can come over to my Canvas shell. Here we are in pre-shell T10 hybrid, and we can come to quizzes. And you'll see that quiz 1 has 7 questions, 36 points, and I can come in and edit it, preview it, do what I need to do. The one thing I have found is that the settings don't translate very well. So if I set up settings in my Respondus to allow students to see their answers or where it's going to go, it doesn't seem to translate very well. So I always come back in and edit it here anyways, and I can say, you know, I don't want a time limit, or I don't want them to see the right answers. Maybe I want this quiz to be assigned to a different group, however the case may be. But most importantly, I want to come to the questions and edit them here, so that I make sure that the student is truly going to see the quiz I want them to see. Okay. For something like this one, you can put in some distractor terms. So let's say you wanted to put in delivers fuel. Some stupid things here to make them think, right? Or whatever. Now there's going to be extra options when they go to select the drop-down box. There will be something different. And I can do the same thing with this one as well. But see, this is the one that I was talking about from Respondus that had that weird spacing. So just a little OCD about this stuff. I want to come down and correct that. And it's usually just some spacing that takes place. And there there you have the spacing errors corrected. All right, so we're going to save it, and this is what the student would see. Instructions, questions, right? Let's go through and blah, blah, blah. CKP, that was a good one. We did CKP and CMP. Now, there is another way. I'm going to come back and talk about this one. There is another way to do multiple form fields, multiple fill in the blank, excuse me. So I'm going to come back and edit that again and show you. Here you can see that I have the original answers plus the one I just added, so the students would have to select the correct ones, and we want them to select all of the ones that are correct. So let's submit the quiz. Okay, so I wanted to come back in and show you the other way to do the multiple fill in the blank, and this is sometimes a little easier for me to work with. So you'll notice it still says fill in the blank, but it's multiple fields. You can change this to multiple fill in the blank, and then instead of these lines, just use brackets to put in a term. Now the term doesn't have to necessarily be the answer, because what you're going to do is down at the bottom, now this is going to show possible answers for CKP. So I can say CKP or crankshaft sensor, etc., etc. But I also have to select the correct answers for CMP. And when we preview this one now, you'll notice that these brackets will go away. So those brackets are replaced by the fill in the blank sections, and the students are going to type instead in those individual sections. So if you're doing multiple fill in the blanks, that it may be a better option than trying to do it through Respondus. But either way, you can accomplish it either way. It's just how you want to organize it. So anyway, I did not anticipate this being a 30-minute video, but it turned into that. And so I'm sure you're going to have questions as well. So let me know if I can help with any of your conversions. Again, not an expert here, but I've been doing it for a while now, so I've got a pretty good grasp on some of the problems you may not run across. So just reach out with any questions.